Hi, I'm Craig Lounsbrough. I want to welcome you to Life Talk. I'm glad that you're here with us today. Some of us don't believe in new starts. We may feel that we're not worthy of a new start, or we may feel that we just don't have what it takes to pull off a new start. But what would we actually do with a new start if it were possible? Not something that looks new because we've cleaned it up in order to make it look new when it's not. Not some radical makeover of something that's radically old so that it looks new, but it's not. Some tedious restoration that's going to temporarily erase the footprints of time and grant something old a few more years of life until it eventually shows its real age again. Because that stuff's born of the belief that we're not worthy of something really new, and that we're just not smart enough to actually create something that's different than whatever it is that we've got and whoever it is that we are. New. How do we make something new? Well, here's 5 brief ideas on what you need to do in order to begin making things new in your life. First, a new future is built from the raw materials of the past. We build for tomorrow on the foundation of the past. For good or ill, the past is what we've got. The past holds the raw materials from which futures are built. The memories, the experiences, the wounds, the trauma, gains, losses, betrayals, and the various lessons of the past that we draw from those things are the natural fodder that feeds a future seeking sustenance to grow it. So think about this. The more the damage, the more the material that you have to work with. We grow in pain. We learn in struggle. We're stretched when it's hard. Wounds, trauma, disappointment, loss, regret, betrayal, failure. Yeah, all of that stuff is painful. But all of that stuff is also filled with some of the greatest growth opportunities that you are ever going to get. A new future is built from the raw material of the past. Second, a new future demands risk. You know, when our self-confidence has been beaten to a pulp, every risk looks big. There is no little risk. Risk is risk and is formidable regardless of how big or small it might be. Risk is hazardous because it can turn on us. It can go sideways in a heartbeat. And if it does, it can instantly affirm all of the negative stuff about us that we don't want affirmed. Risk is dangerous. But we have to think about the risk in not going forward. We have to consider the risk of staying where we are and remaining who we are. We have to ponder the price that we'll pay for being apathetic versus pressing against our apathy and taking a shot at something better. We will actually affirm our low self-esteem by not acting because that's what will happen. Look, we may not have the confidence that the future will be good, but neither do we have the certainty that it will be bad. Not to risk is the greatest risk of all. Therefore, we've got to weigh the risk in acting against the greater risk of not acting. A new future demands risk. Third, a new future will demand something new. If we want a truly new future, something about it's got to be new. New implies something that does not possess any of the elements that we already possess. Something must be added that has not been added before because we've been too afraid to add it. Some places that we've never been before must be some places that we're now willing to consider going, despite how afraid we might be of going there. Some direction that we've either adamantly avoided or never thought to consider needs to be considered and needs to be mapped out, even though such a thought is incredibly frightening. Some decision that we might have avoided out of the fear that it may rock our world may need to be made and be granted permission to rock our world a bit, knowing that sometimes it's the rocking that brings the changing. A new future will demand something new. Fourth, a new future means grieving what we're leaving. Now, when we leave something behind, it will naturally leave a hole of some sort. Whether that hole is large or small, disorienting or desired, painful or painless, it is the now vacant space that was once occupied by whatever it is that we're leaving or whatever left us. Having these holes creates a measure of discomfort because we're not used to a hole being where something else used to be, and where that something else maybe still should be. And on top of that, we're naturally prone to fill empty spaces for the simple fact that they're empty. And we do that because we assume that there's something wrong with us because they shouldn't be empty. Empty doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It means that something's coming to you, and now you have space for it. It's a commentary on the opportunity that stands in front of you, not some deficit that resides within you. A new future means grieving what we're leaving. And fifth and finally, a new future is not building a museum. We want to keep a few mementos. We want to hold on to a few things. We want to grab a handful of assorted trinkets and knickknacks to have something to ground us in the certainty and familiarity of days gone by, even though we wish that the pain associated with those days would also go by. However, too often keeping a few mementos turns into keeping a whole lot of mementos. Eventually, we're starting to create a memento museum. Before long, we're managing a memento museum. And soon thereafter, we're living in it. We're not supposed to live in the past because the past wasn't designed for that purpose. Yes, it's familiar, and it doesn't present us with the unknowns of the future. But as we noted previously, the past is the rich raw material from which we craft a future, not the raw material that we use to preserve a past. However, we want to sort and catalog and categorize and organize and stow and store all of that stuff. And before we know it, the museum is managing us because our constantly low self-esteem is yelling at us that we have no ability to manage a new future. So we settle for managing a past. The things that we're preserving in the museums of our yesterday are the precious raw materials that stand ready to construct our tomorrow. Let them do what they're supposed to do. A new future is not building a museum. Today's podcast is drawn from the book, The Self That I Long to Believe In, The Challenge of Building Self-Esteem. I would encourage you to get your copy today at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever books are sold. Thanks for joining us on Life Talk today. You will find Life Talk on most podcast platforms, as well as YouTube. I would also encourage you to check out our daily posts on all of our social media sites. Thanks for being here today. See you next time.
Our self-esteem is not diminished by the power of the people around us. Rather, it is diminished by the power that we grant the people around us.